Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready to dive into something that's, well, obviously it's about to change the tech world as we know it. We're talking CXL memory.
CXL memory, yeah.
And no, I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't heard of it yet.
Right.
It's pretty new on the scene, but trust me, this is a game changer.
Yeah.
Especially if you're even a little bit curious about what makes our devices tick.
Yeah, it's true. This isn't just another incremental upgrade.
Yeah.
CXL is tackling a problem that's been holding back computing power for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
The infamous memory wall.
The memory wall.
Basically, it's a bottleneck. Our CPUs, the brains of our computers, they're getting faster and more powerful.
Right.
But the memory, where all the data is stored, just can't keep up.
Okay, so picture this. You're cruising down a 16-lane superhighway, no traffic, feeling great.
Okay.
Suddenly, it shrinks down to a single-lane dirt road. Everything grinds to a halt.
That's kind of what's happening inside our computers right now.
Exactly. And this isn't just a problem for, massive supercomputers or data centers. Oh, okay.
It's affecting your phone, your laptop, everything.
Really?
Remember that feeling of your devices just getting slower over time?
Yeah.
Part of that is this memory bottleneck.
Huh.
And it has huge implications for everything from artificial intelligence to even medical research.
I'm already seeing those not enough memory error messages just flashing before my eyes. So how does CXL actually fix this?
Right.
Well, our source material for this deep dive is a webinar
Okay.
from the CXL consortium themselves.
Uh-huh.
The folks leading this whole revolution.
Okay.
They really get into the nitty-gritty of it all.
Yeah, they do.
So how about you get us started?
So imagine if instead of cramming all the memory right next to the CPU, we could put it elsewhere, connected by a super fast cable. Almost like an external hard drive,
Okay.
but specifically for active memory.
Oh, okay.
That's essentially what CXL allows us to do.
So it's like having a whole other building dedicated to memory right next door to your CPU's office. But wouldn't that make things complicated?
Yeah.
For the CPU to access all that data?
That's where the real magic comes in. Something called coherency.
Coherency.
Thanks to some clever engineering, the CPU sees this external memory as if it were built right in.
Oh, wow.
No special commands, no delays. It's all seamless.
So it's like having a personal assistant who magically brings you any file you need instantly, even if it's stored miles away.
Exactly. And the webinar even dives into the different types of CXL devices.
Okay.
The one that's going to be a real game changer is called Type 3.
Type 3.
It's specifically designed for memory expansion. But we don't need to get too lost in the technical weeds just yet.
Okay, you're right. Let's talk about what this actually means for us in the real world, because the webinar mentions a whole bunch of mind-blowing use cases.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking everything from making AI more accessible to speeding up drug discovery. It's amazing.
What's fascinating is that any field that relies on huge data sets benefits from this memory boost. Take AI, for example. Right now, those super powerful AI programs, like the one that can write a whole essay for you,
Oh, yeah.
they're limited to, giant tech companies with tons of resources.
Because they need so much memory just to function.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with CXL, those memory limitations disappear. Suddenly, researchers, smaller companies, even individuals could potentially have access to the same AI capabilities.
Wow.
It could democratize the entire field.
That's incredible. I'm already picturing all the amazing things people could do with that kind of power.
Yeah.
And it's not just AI. The webinar talks about how CXL could revolutionize medicine as well.
Absolutely.
So tell me more about that.
Imagine being able to sequence DNA or simulate complex drug interactions, but at lightning speed. This could lead to personalized medicine,
Wow.
faster diagnoses, and maybe even cures for diseases that are currently incurable.
So CXL could literally be life-saving.
Potentially, yes.
But let's not forget about the fun stuff, too. I bet this tech will also have a huge impact on entertainment.
Oh, absolutely.
What do we have in store there?
Think about things like 8K video rendering,
Okay.
hyper-realistic special effects in movies and games, virtual reality experiences that are indistinguishable from real life.
Yeah.
All of that requires massive amounts of memory,
Right.
and CXL can deliver.
So what you're saying is I need to start saving up for that CXL-powered gaming rig right now.
Well, might be a little early for that,
Yeah.
but the webinar does highlight some companies that are already making CXL products.
Oh, really?
We're not talking science fiction here. This is becoming reality.
Oh, tell me more. Who are these pioneers?
Companies like Unifabrics are building these massive memory pools.
Memory pools, okay.
Essentially standalone boxes packed with terabytes of memory that you can connect to servers.
Huh.
And EST Labs is creating special controller chips that let you add CXL memory directly to your existing systems.
So it's kind of like how you can upgrade the RAM in your computer today,
Yes.
but on a much grander scale.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that they're all working towards standardized solutions.
Okay.
This is key because it means lower costs and wider adoption over time.
Kind of like how USB became the standard for connecting devices.
Exactly.
So now everything just works together seamlessly.
Right. And there's even a company called S-Tech that's pushing the boundaries with optical cable technology for CXL.
Optical cable, wow.
They're using fiber optic cables instead of traditional copper wires,
Okay.
which allows for longer distances and even faster data transfer rates.
So you could potentially have racks and racks of memory all connected together with these super fast cables, like a giant interconnected brain for data processing.
That's exactly the vision. And it's all starting to happen right now.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about how this could change the world.
It is, yeah.
But it's still early days, right?
It is.
I imagine there are some challenges to overcome before CXL becomes mainstream.
Of course. Any new technology has its growing pains. The webinar does acknowledge that there's still work to be done.
Like what?
For example, we need better ways to measure the performance of CXL systems and ensure that software can take full advantage of all this new memory.
So new tools and new ways of thinking about how we write software.
Exactly. But the good news is that the CXL Consortium is actively working on all of these challenges.
Oh, good.
They're collaborating with companies across the industry to create standards, develop tools, and ensure that CXL is a reliable and powerful technology for everyone.
It sounds like they're laying the groundwork for a whole new era of computing.
That's a great way to put it. It's
Yeah.
an exciting time to be following this technology.
Well, you've certainly got me hooked. I can't wait to hear more about the potential impact of CXL and what this means for the future. But for now, I think we need to take a little break and let all this information sink in.
Sounds like a plan. We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into the world of CXL memory.
Welcome back. I don't know about you, but I am still buzzing from all that CXL talk.
Me too.
We've covered a lot of ground already, from that pesky memory wall to the magic of making external memory feel built in.
Yeah, it really is ingenious how they achieve that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like having a massive library just down the street that feels as accessible as your own bookshelf.
That's a great analogy. But I have to admit the technical side still feels a little fuzzy to me.
Oh, okay.
How does the CPU actually keep track of all this extra memory?
So that's where the webinar really gets into the weeds. They talk about something called a cache coherent interconnect,
Okay.
which sounds intimidating, but it's actually a pretty elegant solution.
Okay, break it down for me. What's the ELI5 version of that?
Imagine you and I are working on a project together,
Yeah.
and we both have a copy of the same document.
Sounds familiar. That's how most of my group projects end up.
Right, but here's the problem. If we both start making changes without staying in sync, things get messy fast.
Yeah.
Conflicting versions, missing information, lots of headaches.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
So is a cache coherent interconnect like a super-powered Google Docs that makes sure we're always working on the latest version?
Exactly. In a computer system, the CPU, the graphics card, and now the external CXL memory, they all need to access and update information constantly.
Right.
And without coherency, there'd be different teams working on different versions of the project, leading to, errors and slowdowns.
So this interconnect acts like a project manager, making sure everyone has the right information at the right time.
Precisely. It ensures that all the different parts of the system are always on the same page, so to speak,
Yeah.
even if the data is spread out across multiple locations.
Right.
And this is absolutely crucial for applications that need lightning-fast access to information, like those massive AI models we talked about.
Right. Okay. That makes a lot more sense now.
Good.
Speaking of those companies building CXL products, the webinar mentioned a few different approaches, right?
Yes.
It wasn't all just one size fits all.
You're right. There are a couple of main paths companies are taking. Unifabrics, for example, is all about these huge, centralized memory pools.
Okay.
It's like building a massive library that everyone can access. Their max memory pool can hold a whopping 32 terabytes.
32 terabytes. I can't even picture that much data.
It's a lot.
What would you even do with all that memory?
Well, imagine running complex simulations, analyzing enormous data sets, or training AI models that are orders of magnitude larger than what's possible today. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
It's like going from a tiny studio apartment to a sprawling mansion.
Yeah.
But what about those folks who don't need a whole memory mansion, just a little extra space?
Right. That's where companies like EST Labs come in. They're creating controller chips that let you add CXL memory directly to your existing servers. It's more like adding a guest room onto your house.
Oh, okay.
It's a targeted upgrade for specific needs.
So there's an option for both the big players and the little guys. It sounds like CXL is really trying to cater to a wide range of users.
That's one of the things that makes it so promising. It's not just a niche technology for a select few. And remember, that optical cable technology from S-Tech.
Right, the super fast fiber optic cables.
Yes. That could really change the game when it comes to connecting all these different memory resources.
Right, so we could have entire data centers connected by these cables, creating these vast networks of memory.
It's a pretty wild concept.
Yeah.
And it's not just about capacity. Those optical cables can also transmit data much faster than traditional copper wires.
Yeah.
It's like going from dial-up internet to fiber optic broadband, but for memory.
Okay, I'm officially starting to geek out over here. This is like next level stuff. But even with all these amazing possibilities, I have to wonder, are there any downsides to CXL?
Of course.
What are the challenges that still need to be figured out?
That's a great question, and it's something the webinar addresses head on. One of the big ones is benchmarking.
Benchmarking.
How do we even measure the performance of these new CXL systems? Traditional benchmarks don't really apply because the way memory is used is completely different.
So it's like trying to judge a race car based on how well it performs on a bicycle track.
Exactly. The whole game has changed. The CXL consortium is working with companies to develop new benchmarks specifically for CXL.
Okay.
But it's still work in progress.
And what about software?
Right.
Do our existing programs even know how to use all this extra memory?
That's another big challenge. Operating systems and applications, they weren't designed with CXL in mind. So they need to be updated to take full advantage of it. Imagine trying to run a modern video game on a computer from the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
The hardware might be there, but the software can't keep up.
Right. So there's a lot of catching up to do on the software side, but it sounds like the CXL consortium is on top of it, working with developers to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Absolutely. And they're even developing new programming models to make it easier for developers to write software that harnesses the power of CXL. It's a whole new way of thinking about how we write code.
That's reassuring to hear. I was starting to worry that we'd have all this amazing hardware, but no way to actually use it.
It's definitely a journey, but it's one that the entire industry is embarking on together.
And that's what makes this so exciting. It's not just one company pushing a proprietary solution. It's a collaborative effort, a whole ecosystem built around open standards and shared goals.
You're right. It feels like a true paradigm shift in the world of computing. And we're just at the beginning of this journey. Who knows what incredible applications will emerge as CXL matures and becomes more widely adopted.
That's what I love about technology. It's always pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, I think we need to take a step back and consider the bigger picture. What are the implications of CXL beyond just faster computers? That's a conversation I'm really looking forward to having.
Me too. Yeah. We'll dive into those broader implications in our final part.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into CXL memory. We've talked about how it works, the companies making it happen, even some of the technical hurdles. But now I'm really curious, what does this all mean for the future?
Right.
Beyond just having faster computers, how could CXL really change things?
That's the really exciting part. I think one of the most profound impacts could be how it democratizes access to high-performance computing. Right now, only a handful of giant companies and research institutions have the resources to run those massive AI models or simulations we've been discussing.
Right, because of those memory limitations we talked about, like needing a whole warehouse just to store the data.
Exactly. But imagine a world where any researcher, any startup, anyone with a good idea could access that kind of computing power thanks to CXL.
Wow.
It could be a game changer for innovation across so many fields.
So it's not just about making things faster, it's about making cutting-edge technology available to more people.
Yeah.
That could lead to some really incredible breakthroughs. What kind of impact are we talking about here?
Well, take medicine, for example. Imagine small labs being able to run simulations that could lead to personalized cancer treatments.
Wow.
Or discover new drugs at a fraction of the current cost and time.
That's huge.
That's the kind of potential we're talking about.
Wow, that's incredible. It could really level the playing field, giving smaller players a chance to compete with the giants.
Right.
But it's not just about medicine, right?
No.
I bet this could shake things up in other industries too.
Absolutely. Think about filmmaking.
Okay.
Right now, creating those stunning visual effects
Mhm.
in blockbuster movies requires huge render farms and specialized software that only big studios can afford.
Right.
But with CXL, independent filmmakers could potentially have access to the same tools, allowing for a whole new wave of creativity and storytelling.
So we're not just talking about faster computers, we're talking about empowering people to do things that were previously impossible.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a technological renaissance.
Uh-huh.
But with all this power becoming more accessible, are there any potential downsides?
Of course.
It feels like there's always a trade-off.
That's a valid concern. One of the big challenges that comes with, shared memory is security.
Oh, yeah.
When data is spread out across multiple locations, it becomes more vulnerable to attacks and breaches.
So it's kind of like having a bigger house means you need a more sophisticated security system to keep everything safe.
That's a great way to put it. Luckily, the CXL consortium is very aware of these concerns, and they're building security features right into the CXL standard. It's a crucial part of making this technology reliable and trustworthy.
That makes sense. And I imagine managing all these interconnected systems must be pretty complex, too. It's not like just plugging in an extra RAM stick anymore.
That's right. As we move towards these massive distributed memory pools, we'll need new tools and techniques for monitoring performance,
Yeah.
allocating resources, and ensuring everything runs smoothly.
Oh, wow.
It's a whole new level of complexity.
But hey, the computing industry has a pretty good track record of solving these kinds of challenges. It's like they always find a way to make the impossible possible.
That's the spirit. And I think that's what makes CXL so exciting. It's not just a technical innovation. It's a catalyst for a whole new way of thinking about computing. We're moving away from this idea of a central CPU being the bottleneck and towards a more distributed collaborative model.
It's like going from a single conductor leading an orchestra to a symphony of instruments all playing together in perfect harmony.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Oh.
And it highlights the potential for CXL to truly revolutionize how we design and use computers. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about. I feel like we've only just begun to explore the implications of CXL, but I think it's safe to say that this is a technology with the potential to change the world. And who knows, maybe one day we'll look back and wonder how we ever lived without it.
I have a feeling you might be right about that. It's been a pleasure diving deep into this topic with you.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And for our listeners, if you want to learn more about CXL memory and see for yourself the possibilities we've discussed, be sure to check out the webinar from the CXL Consortium. Just search CXL Consortium Exploring Use Cases on YouTube. And until next time, keep those minds open and those questions coming.